The Great Hall of the Valkyrie Empire was the largest building in the known galaxy. Its walls were made of dark crystal that glowed with strange light. The ceiling was so high that clouds sometimes formed inside. 3 artificial suns floated above, giving light to the thousands of aliens who had gathered for the galactic summit. Sergeant Tai-Ho Park stood alone, in the center of the hall. He was 32 years old, average height for a human, with short black hair and calm, dark eyes. He wore the dress uniform of the Earth Defense Force. His medals caught the light, but they meant nothing to the creatures watching him. Around him, in seats that rose up like a mountain, sat representatives from 47 different species. Some had scales. Some had tentacles. Some were made of gas or light, or things that human eyes could not understand. All of them were looking at the small human, standing on the floor below, and most of them were laughing. The Valkyrie were the rulers of this part of the galaxy. They were giants standing 3 meters tall. Their bodies were covered in scales of deep blue, almost black. Each Valkyrie had 4 arms, and each arm ended in claws that could cut through metal. They had conquered 200 worlds. No species had ever defeated them in battle. General Kress was the greatest of all Valkyrie warriors. He had led their armies for 300 years. He had personally killed the leaders of 6 different species who had dared to challenge Valkyrie power. Now he looked down at Tai-Ho with eyes that burned like orange fire. This is what Earth sends us. Kratz's voice was like thunder. It shook the floor and made the crystal walls vibrate. This tiny creature, this soft, weak thing, the laughter grew louder. The insect-like Thryn made clicking sounds with their mouths. The Mavolians, who were made of colored gas, flashed bright colors that meant mockery. Even the observers, who never showed emotion, let their long tentacles curl in amusement. Tai-Ho said nothing. He simply stood still, his hands at his sides, his face showing no expression at all. In the human section of the hall, Ambassador Unichoi gripped the railing so hard that her fingers turned white. She was 45 years old, a career diplomat who had spent 20 years building relationships with alien species. She had told Earth's government that this was a mistake. Sending a soldier to a diplomatic summit was foolish. Sending a soldier who looked so ordinary, so unremarkable, was worse than foolish. But the president had insisted, the military had insisted, and now their representative was being laughed at by half the galaxy. "Look at him," said a Thryn diplomat to Una. His voice was a series of clicks and hisses that her translator turned into words. "He stands there like a statue. Does he not understand that he is being insulted?" "He understands, said quietly. "Then why does he not react? Does he have no pride?" Una did not answer. She did not know the answer herself. General Kreth descended from his high seat. Each step he took made the floor shake. The other aliens moved out of his way quickly. Even species that had no reason to fear him stepped back. The general's reputation was known throughout the galaxy. He stopped in front of TYO. The human's head barely reached the middle of Kreth's chest. The general could have crushed him with one hand. "Tell me, little human," Kreth said, his voice now soft, but somehow more dangerous. "Do your people truly believe you can stand among warriors? Your species discovered faster than light travel, only 300 years ago. We have ruled the stars for 10,000 years. You are children playing at being adults." Tai-Ho looked up at the massive alien. His expression did not change. "I was not sent to stand among warriors." General Kreth's eyes narrowed. "Then why are you here to deliver a message?" The laughter exploded again, louder than before. "A message?" Earth had sent a small, weak soldier to deliver a message to the most powerful military force in 3 galaxies. It was absurd. It was insulting. It was exactly what the aliens expected from such a young and foolish species. Emperor Varth watched from the obsidian throne. He was ancient even by Valkyrie standards. His scales were scarred from hundreds of battles. He had ruled the Empire for 600 years. And in all that time, no one had dared to challenge him directly. He had killed challengers with his own claws. He had destroyed entire worlds that refused to submit. Now he watched the human with interest. Not because he thought the human was dangerous, but because he was curious. What kind of species would send such a weak representative to such an important meeting? Were humans stupid? Were they arrogant? Or were they something else entirely? Your message can wait, General Kress said to Taiho. First, you will explain to this assembly why Earth believes it deserves a seat on the Galactic Council. What has your species done to earn such an honor? Before Taiho could answer, Ambassador Choi stepped forward. This was her role. This was what she had trained for. Earth requests full membership in the Galactic Council. She said, her voice strong and clear. We meet all the requirements. Our technology has reached the necessary level. We control sufficient territory. We have made peaceful contact with more than 30 species. Requirements. Crest repeated the word like it tasted bad. Requirements are for merchants and bureaucrats. The Volkori did not join this council by meeting requirements. We joined by conquest. The Thryn joined through economic power. The Mavolians joined because they controlled dimensional travel. Every great species has proven its worth. Through strength, he turned back to Tao. What strength does humanity have? You are small, you are weak. You live short lives on a small world. You have no natural weapons, no armor, no special abilities. You cannot survive in space without machines. You cannot even survive on most planets. Without protection, Taiho remained silent. You are nothing, Kreth continued. You are an accident of evolution. A species that should have died on its birth world. The only reason you still exist is because no one has bothered to destroy you. The hall was quiet now. The laughter had stopped. This was no longer funny. This was a powerful warrior. Humiliating a smaller creature. Some of the aliens looked away. Others watched with hungry eyes. Enjoying the cruelty, Ambassador Choi wanted to speak. Wanted to defend humanity, but she knew it would only make things worse. Words meant nothing to the Valkyrie. They respected only strength, and humans appeared to have none. Taiho finally moved. He took one step forward, bringing himself even closer to the general, close enough that Kreth could have killed him. With a single swipe of his claws. Are you finished? Taiho asked. The question was so unexpected that Kress did not immediately respond. No one spoke to him like that. No one. I asked if you were finished. Taiho repeated. His voice was calm, almost polite, because when you were done talking, I would like to deliver my message. General Kreth stared at the human for just a moment. Something flickered in his orange eyes. Not fear. The general had never felt fear. But perhaps curiosity, perhaps surprise. What the general did not know, what none of the assembled aliens knew, was that Taiho Park had been chosen for this mission. Very carefully. He was not just a soldier. He was not just a messenger. He was a weapon, and by the time the summit was over, no one in the galaxy would ever laugh at humanity again. The next morning came quickly. The artificial suns in the Great Hall dimmed and brightened again to mark the passing of time. The aliens returned to their seats. The whispers filled the air, like the sound of wind through leaves. Everyone was talking about the human, not because he had done anything impressive. He had simply stood there, while General Kreth insulted him. He had asked one strange question, and then the session had ended for the day. But there was something about the way he had asked that question, something about the look in his eyes. Several of the older species, the ones who had seen many wars and many surprises, felt uneasy, they could not explain why. Emperor Varth sat upon the obsidian throne. The throne was carved from the core of a dead planet. It was black as space and cold as the void between stars. The emperor had sat upon it for 600 years, and he intended to sit upon it for 600 more. Today he would decide the fate of humanity. Ambassador Una Choi stood before the assembly. She had not slept well. She had spent the night sending messages to Earth, trying to understand why they had sent Taiho, trying to get permission to handle things differently. But Earth's response had been simple. Trust the plan. What plan? She did not know of any plan. The Council will hear Earth's formal request. For membership, the Emperor announced. His voice was deep and slow, like stones grinding together. Una bowed respectfully. Thank you. Emperor Worth, as I stated yesterday, Earth meets all requirements for full membership in the Galactic Council. We ask only for the same rights and responsibilities as any other member species. Rights must be earned, General Kreth interrupted. He had been waiting for this moment. Responsibilities must be proven. You speak of requirements, but requirements are meaningless. Tell us, Ambassador, what has humanity done to prove itself worthy? We have built a civilization that spans 12 worlds. Una replied. We have established peaceful trade with 34 species. We have contributed to scientific research that has benefited the entire galaxy. You have done nothing. Crest's voice cut through her words like a blade. You have built little colonies on little worlds. You have traded goods like merchants. You have played in laboratories like children. None of this proves strength. None of this proves worth. The other aliens murmured in agreement. The Volcori way of thinking had influenced the entire galaxy. Strength was what mattered. Power was what earned respect. Everything else was weakness. Emperor Vorath raised one massive hand, and silence fell instantly. There is a way, he said slowly, to settle this matter an ancient way. A way that cannot be argued or debated. The hall grew very still. Some of the older aliens knew what was coming. They had seen it before long ago. The trial of champions. Gasps echoed through the hall. One of the lesser Valkyrie officials stepped forward, his scales pale with worry. Sire, the trial has not been used in 400 cycles. It was created for disputes between great powers. Not for what. The Emperor's voice was soft, but it carried a threat as heavy as a mountain. Not for judging whether a species is worthy. That is exactly what the trial was created for. The official stepped back quickly. His head bowed. Emperor Vorath looked down at the human delegation. At Ambassador Choi, who had gone very pale. At Sergeant Taiho Park, who stood behind her, with the same calm expression he had worn since arriving. The rules are simple, the Emperor continued. Each side chooses one champion. The champions fight until one surrenders or dies. If Earth's champion wins, humanity receives full membership and all the rights that come with it. He paused, letting the weight of his next words build. If Earth's champion loses, then Earth becomes a tributary of the Volcori Empire. Your ships, your worlds, your resources, your people. All of it belongs to us. You will serve us for as long as the stars burn. The hall erupted in noise. Aliens shouted questions and protests and cheers. The Thren clicked excitedly. The Mavolians flashed colors of anticipation. Even the normally calm observers rippled with interest. Ambassador Choi stepped forward. Her heart was pounding, but she kept her voice steady. We need time to consider this offer. We must consult with our government. The stakes are no. The single word cut through the noise. Everyone turned to look at Sergeant Taiho Park. He had stepped forward past the ambassador, past the guards, until he stood alone on the floor of the great hall. His voice was not loud, but somehow it carried to every corner of the room. We accept the silence that followed was complete. Not a sound, not a movement. Every alien in the hall stared at the small human, who had just gambled the future of his entire species. Ambassador Choi grabbed Tai-Ho's arm and pulled him close. Her face was white with shock and anger. "Are you insane?" she whispered fiercely. "You do not have the authority to accept something like this. You are a soldier, not a diplomat." "You cannot. I have the authority." Tai-Ho met her eyes calmly. "Check your secure communication channel. The president's authorization came through 3 minutes ago." Yuna pulled out her communication device. With shaking hands, she checked her messages. And her face went even paler. The message was there. Direct from the President of Earth. It gave Sergeant Tai-Ho Park full authority to accept the trial of champions. On behalf of humanity, this is madness. She whispered, "This is suicide. You cannot fight a Valkyrie warrior. They are 3 meters tall. They have claws that can cut through steel. They have 4 arms. They are the greatest warriors in the galaxy. I know then, you know. You will die, you will die. And Earth will become a slave to the Volcori Empire." Tai-Ho turned back to face the assembly. General Kreth was already walking down from his seat, his forearms flexing with anticipation. His scales seemed darker now, almost black with excitement. He had been waiting for something like this. A chance to prove Valkyrie supremacy. A chance to crush another species under his claws. "I will fight for the Valkyrie," Kreth announced. "I will personally show this human what strength means." Emperor Vorath nodded slowly. "And who will fight for Earth?" All eyes turned to Tai-Ho. "I will." More whispers. More laughter, a single human against General Kress. It was not even worth watching. It would be over in seconds. "Do you have weapons you wish to use?" The Emperor asked. "Do you require armor?" The trial allows each champion to fight with whatever tools they choose. TYO looked at General Kreth. The massive alien was already strapping ritual blades. To each of his forearms, the blades were ancient, passed down through generations of Valkyrie warriors. They had killed thousands of enemies. No weapons. Tai-Ho said no armor. Now even the Emperor looked surprised. "You wish to fight unarmed against General Kreth?" "Yes," General Kreth laughed. It was a sound like thunder and breaking rock. "Foolish creature. You seek to make your death more impressive. You think dying bravely will save your species? It will not. I will tear you apart. And then I will tear apart your worlds." Tai-Ho said nothing. Ambassador Choi tried one last time. "Please, there must be another way. Let me negotiate. Let me find a solution." Tai-Ho put a hand on her shoulder. For the first time, she saw something in his eyes. Not fear, not confidence. Something older, something patient. "Ambassador, do you know why they sent me?" "No, I've been asking that question since you arrived. They sent me because I am not a diplomat. I am not here to talk. I am not here to negotiate." He looked at the Great Hall, at the thousands of aliens who expected to watch him die. "I am here because sometimes words are not enough. Sometimes the only way to make someone listen is to show them something they have never seen before." "What are you going to show them?" Tai-Ho smiled. It was a small smile. Calm and quiet, what humanity really is. The Emperor raised his hand. "The trial will begin at dawn tomorrow. The arena of judgment will be prepared. Let all the galaxy witness what happens when a species reaches beyond its place." As the hall emptied, as the aliens returned to their quarters to prepare for the spectacle, Ambassador Choi watched Tai-Ho Park walk away. He moved like water, she realized. Smooth and quiet and somehow unstoppable. For the first time since this mission began, She felt something other than fear. She felt curiosity. Who exactly had Earth sent to represent them? The Arena of Judgment was older than the Valkyrie Empire itself. It had been built by a species that no longer existed. A species that had ruled the galaxy. Before the Valkyrie were born, the stone walls were dark gray, carved with symbols that no one could read anymore. The floor was smooth, from thousands of years of blood and battle. Today, 18 trillion beings were watching. Every planet with a communication system had access to the broadcast. Every species in the known galaxy had stopped their work, their wars, their daily lives to watch what was about to happen. The trial of champions had not been held in 400 years. And this trial was special. This trial would show once and for all whether humanity deserved a place among the stars. Most of the galaxy expected it to last about 10 seconds. General Kreth stood on one side of the arena. He wore his combat harness, a frame of dark metal that held his 4 ritual blades in position. Each blade was as long as Taiho's arm, and sharper than anything humans could make. The blades had been passed down through Kreth's family. For 1,000 years they had never failed to kill. Kreth was smiling, his teeth were sharp and numerous, and his orange eyes burned with joy. He had waited a long time for a fight like this. Most enemies ran from him. Most enemies surrendered before he could reach them. This human was going to stand and face him. It was foolish, but it was also exciting. On the other side of the arena, Taiho Park walked through the entrance. A wave of murmuring passed through the spectators. The human was wearing simple training clothes. Dark pants, a gray shirt, soft shoes. He had no weapons. No armor, not even gloves to protect his hands. He looked like he was going for a morning exercise, not fighting the deadliest warrior in the galaxy. In the observation platform, Ambassador Yuna Choi stood, with her hands clasped together, so tightly that her fingernails dug into her skin. Beside her, a Thren diplomat leaned close. "He's not even going to fight." The Thren said he's going to die. Perhaps this is a human ritual. A sacrifice to show courage. No, Yuna said quietly. Humans do not make sacrifices like that. Then what is he doing? Yuna did not answer. She did not know. She had spent the whole night trying to understand, trying to find information about Taiho Park, trying to learn why Earth had chosen him. But his file was mostly empty. His military record showed nothing special. He had served for 15 years, received some medals, but nothing that explained why he was here. The only unusual thing was a note at the bottom of his file. It said he had completed something called the silent training. Yuna had never heard of it. When she searched for information, she found nothing. Emperor Vorath raised his hand. The crowd fell silent. The trial of champions begins now. Fight until surrender or death. Let the galaxy witness. He brought his hand down. General Kreth charged. The Valkyrie were not built for speed, but Kreth had trained for 300 years. He moved faster than something his size should move. His forearms spread wide, each blade ready to cut from a different angle. The ground shook under his steps. The air screamed as his blades cut through it. Any normal creature would have been dead. Before they could blink, Taiho moved. What happened next was difficult for most aliens to understand. Their eyes could not follow it. Their minds could not process it. One moment, Krest was about to cut the human into pieces. The next moment, the human was somewhere else. Taiho had not moved backward. He had not run away. He had stepped forward. Directly into Krest's attack. His body twisted in a way that seemed impossible. He bent at angles that should have broken his spine. One blade passed through the space, where his neck had been a moment before. Another blade missed his chest by the width of a finger. A third blade cut through empty air, as Taiho somehow slipped between the attacks, like water through stones, and then his palm touched Crest's throat. It was not a punch, it was not a strike. It was a touch gentle and precise. Exactly on a spot where three nerves met, under the Valkyrie's thick scales. Kreth's next attack was wild. His arms moved wrong, his breathing changed. Something had happened to his body. Something he did not understand what. Kreth stumbled, his eyes wide. "What did you do to me?" Taiho did not answer. He was already moving again. His hands touched Kreth's body in different places. A spot behind the general's primary ear. A point on his lower back. The joint where his upper right arm connected to his shoulder. Each touch was light, almost gentle. Each touch caused something to stop working. Crest's upper right arm went limp. The crowd was completely silent now. No one was laughing, no one was talking. Every eye was fixed on the arena, where the impossible was happening. Valkyrie anatomy is not in any database that humans can access, Taiho said. His voice was calm, almost conversational. Your species guards its medical information very carefully, so we had to find another way. He touched another point. Kreth's lower left arm stopped moving. We studied the species you have conquered. 73 species with similar evolutionary backgrounds. We mapped their nervous systems, their pressure points, their weaknesses. Then we used mathematics to predict where your weak points would be. Another touch, Crest's legs began to shake. Humans have only traveled the stars for 3 centuries. You are right about that. Taiho circled the weakening general like a shadow. But we have been fighting each other for 300,000 years. We have had a very long time to learn how bodies work. How to break them, how to control them. Kreth tried to swing his remaining working arm. Taiho was not there, he was behind the general now. His fingers pressing into the base of Crest's skull. Your species thinks strength means size, muscles, claws. Weapons. Taiho's voice was quiet. But in the silent arena, everyone heard it. Humans learned something different. We learned that the greatest strength is knowledge, understanding, patience. Kresh fell to one knee, his massive body shook. His orange eyes, which had never shown fear in 300 years, were wide with terror. What are you? He whispered. Taiho stepped back. The general was helpless now. All 4 arms hung limp. His legs could not support his weight. He knelt on the floor of the arena like a statue. I am a human, Taiho said. I am small, I am weak. I have no claws, no armor. No natural weapons. My species lives short lives on a tiny world. He looked up at the observation platforms, at the thousands of aliens watching in shock. And I just defeated the greatest warrior in your empire, without throwing a single punch. The silence stretched on, no one moved. No one spoke, the 18 trillion beings watching. Could not believe what they had seen. General Kreth, the undefeated champion of the Valkyrie, knelt helpless before an unarmed human. In the observation platform, Ambassador Choi felt tears in her eyes. She did not know why she was crying. Relief, perhaps, or wonder, or something else she could not name. He knew, she whispered. He knew he could win. The whole time he knew. The Thryn diplomat beside her said nothing. Its mandibles hung open, it had no words. On the arena floor, Taiho walked toward the fallen general. His footsteps were the only sound. The trial says you must surrender or die, he said quietly. I do not want to kill you. General, you fought with honor. You simply did not understand what you were fighting. Kress looked up at him. The fear in his eyes had changed to something else. Something like respect. I cannot surrender. The general said the ritual blades will not allow it. They inject poison into any Valkyrie who tries to yield. I must die or I must win, Tao nodded slowly. He had expected this. The Valkyrie did not believe in surrender. Their culture was built on victory or death. But Taiho had not come here to kill. Then we will have to find another way. He said. He turned away from Kraith and looked toward the obsidian throne, where Emperor Vorath watched, with eyes that burned brighter than Taiho had ever seen. The trial was not over yet, and Taiho had not delivered his message. General Kreth could not surrender. The ritual blade strapped to his arms would kill him if he tried. This was the Valkyrie way. A warrior either won or died. There was no middle path, there was no mercy. But Taiho had no interest in killing. He stood before the paralyzed general thinking. The crowd watched in silence. The 18 trillion beings across the galaxy waited to see what would happen next. Would the human finish his enemy? Would he show the same cruelty that the Valkyrie had shown to so many species? Instead, Taiho did something no one expected. He reached down and with careful precision removed the ritual blades from Crest's harness. The general could not stop him. His arms were useless. His body would not obey his commands. "What are you doing?" Kref asked. His voice was weak, confused. "Giving you a choice," Taiho replied. He set the blades on the ground, far from Krasa's reach without them. The general could surrender without dying. The poison would not trigger. The ancient rules would not kill him. "You cannot do this," Kres said. "The blades are part of me. They have been part of my family for 1,000 years. To remove them is what dishonor." Taiho looked at the general with something like pity. "You were going to kill me, General. You were going to tear me apart, and then enslave my entire species. I think you can survive a little dishonor." He stepped back. "Do you surrender?" The arena was utterly silent. Every Valkyrie in the crowd stared at the scene below. This was impossible. This was against everything they believed. A warrior did not accept surrender. A warrior did not show mercy. A warrior certainly did not disarm his enemy to save that enemy's life. General Kreth closed his eyes. When he opened them again, the fear and confusion were gone. In their place was something Taiho had not expected. "Respect, I surrender." Kreth said. A sound rose from the crowd. Not cheering, not anger. Just sound, the noise of thousands of beings, trying to process what they had just witnessed. But Taiho was not finished. He turned away from Crest and began walking toward the obsidian throne. His steps were steady and calm. He did not hurry, he did not slow down. "What is he doing?" Ambassador Choi whispered from the observation platform. 8 Valkyrie guards stood between the arena floor and the Emperor's throne. They were the elite of the elite, chosen from millions of warriors. For their skill and loyalty, each one had killed more enemies than most soldiers saw in a lifetime. They moved to intercept Taiho. He did not stop walking. The first guard reached for him with all 4 arms. Taiho was not there. He had shifted to the left, so smoothly that it looked like the guard had simply missed. His hand touched the guard's neck, and the guard collapsed. The second guard attacked from behind. Taiho turned, his palm striking a point on the guard's chest. The guard dropped without a sound. The third and fourth guards came together, trying to trap him between them. Taiho flowed between their attacks. Like water through rocks, his fingers found pressure. Points that should not have existed, nerves that should have been impossible to reach. Through Valkyrie scales, both guards fell. The fifth guard threw a blade. Taiho moved his head a few centimeters to the side. The blade passed so close that it cut a few hairs from his head. Before the guard could throw another, Taiho was beside him, a touch to the temple. The guard crumpled the sixth, 7th and 8th Guards attacked together. They had seen what happened to the others. They knew they could not win in single combat. But together, surely together, they could stop one small human. They could not. Taiho move through them like a ghost. His hands were everywhere and nowhere. He struck points that made muscles freeze. He touched nerves that made bodies stop obeying commands. He did not punch, he did not kick. He simply touched, and the greatest warriors in the Valkyrie Empire fell before him. When he reached the steps of the obsidian throne, all 8 guards lay on the ground behind him. None of them were dead. None of them were even seriously injured. They were simply helpless. Emperor Vorath rose from his throne. The Emperor was almost 4 meters tall, the largest Volcoro alive. His scales were ancient and scarred from hundreds of battles. He had ruled for 600 years. He had killed entire species that dared to challenge him. He had never known defeat. "You dare approach my throne, human." His voice was like mountains falling. Taiho stopped 3 steps below the Emperor. For the first time since the trial began, his breathing was slightly heavy. The effort of disabling 9 of the greatest warriors in the galaxy had cost him something, but his voice was steady. "I came to deliver a message. You asked me yesterday why I was here. This is why you have won your trial. Humanity will have its membership. But if you think this display has earned you anything more than grudging tolerance, I did not come for tolerance." Taiho took another step up. "I came to show you something that your empire, with all its power, has never understood." He raised his hands slowly. He showed them to the Emperor. They were empty, small, soft. The hands of a creature that should have been prey. "I have no weapons, I have no fleet behind me. I have no army, no bombs. No machines of war." He took the final step, bringing him within arm's reach of the most powerful being in the galaxy. "And yet here I stand before your throne, having defeated your greatest general, that having walked through your guards." Emperor Vorath's claws extended. Each one was as long as Taiho's forearm, and sharp enough to cut through starship armor. One swipe would end the human's life. "What is your message?" the Emperor asked. Taiho looked up at him without fear. "Humanity does not want war with the Valkyrie. We do not want to conquer you, or rule you, or prove that we are better than you. We want to work together to build something greater than any single species can build alone." He gestured at the fallen guards, at the paralyzed general. "But we needed you to understand something first. Something very important, and what is that?" Taiho's voice carried across the arena. Every being in the galaxy heard what he said next. "That if you ever threaten Earth or our people, it will not be our warships you need to fear. It will not be our weapons or our technology, or our armies, it will be us. Individual humans who will walk into your throne rooms, your command centers, your most secure fortresses, and we will end your ability to hurt us without firing a single shot." He bowed. It was a deep bow, full of respect. "That is humanity's message to the galaxy. We want peace, we truly want cooperation and friendship. But we are not prey, we have never been prey. And we never will be." The Emperor stared at the small creature before him. His claws were still extended. He could still kill this human. It would be easy. One movement and the threat would be gone. But what would that accomplish? If this one human could do what he had done, how many more were there on Earth? How many could walk into Valkyrie strongholds and bring them down from the inside? How many could appear in the Emperor's own bedroom and end his rule before anyone knew they were there? This was not a threat, this was a truth. Humanity had just shown that they could strike anywhere, at any time against anyone. And they were choosing not to. They were offering peace instead. Emperor Varth looked at the human for a long moment. Then slowly he did something that no one in the galaxy had ever seen him do. He laughed. It was not mocking laughter. It was not cruel laughter. It was the laughter of someone who had just realized that the universe was much more interesting than he had thought. "You are very strange creatures," he said, "very strange indeed." He sat back down on the obsidian throne. "Humanity is granted full membership in the Galactic Council, and I believe we have much to discuss about the future." Taiho bowed again. The message had been delivered. 3 months passed. The galaxy changed. The Treaty of Earth was signed in the same Great Hall where Taiho had first been laughed at. Now the hall was filled with different sounds. Translators hummed as diplomats from 100 species discussed trade, agreements. Scientists shared research data. Military commanders talked about joint training exercises. Humanity was no longer a joke. Humanity was a partner. Ambassador Yuna Choi stood at the center of it all. She had worked harder in the past 3 months than in her entire previous career. Every day brought new meetings, new negotiations, new challenges. The Valkyrie respected strength, but they also respected results. And humans were very good at getting results. General Kreth had become an unlikely ally. After his defeat, he had spent weeks recovering in the medical center. His body healed quickly. The Valkyrie was strong. But his mind took longer. He had been the greatest warrior in the galaxy, and he had been defeated by a creature half his size, with no weapons. Instead of shame, he found curiosity. He began studying human history. He read about their wars, their conflicts, their endless struggles against each other and against nature. He learned about martial arts that have been developed over thousands of years. He discovered philosophies that valued peace over war, but were ready for war when peace failed. One day he called a meeting of young Valkyrie officers. They call it humanity, he told them. Their word for their species comes from the same root as their word for kindness. They define themselves not by their strength, but by their ability to care for each other. A young officer raised her claw. Then why are they so dangerous? Kreth touched the spot on his throat, where Taiho's palm had struck him. Because they have been at war with themselves for longer than our empire has existed. Every generation, they find new ways to defeat enemies who are larger, stronger, better armed. They are never satisfied with their current abilities. They always seek to improve, but they want peace. Another officer said yes. They want peace because they have seen what endless war creates. They have nearly destroyed their own world many times. They choose peace not because they are weak, but because they know what they are capable of. Kreth looked at his students, and they choose not to become that thing. The officers were silent, thinking about these strange creatures who could have destroyed the Valkyrie leadership in a single night, but instead offered friendship on Earth. Taiho Park returned to his home. He lived in a small house in Bizen, on the coast of Korea. The house had belonged to his grandmother. It had a garden full of vegetables and flowers. It had a view of the mountains on one side and the ocean on the other. Taiho tended his garden every morning. He practiced his forms as the sun rose. He cooked simple meals and read old books. He lived the quiet life that he had always wanted. One day, Ambassador Choi came to visit. She arrived in a government transport, but she came alone, no guards. No assistants, just her walking up the path to his door. Taiho met her in the garden. He was on his knees, pulling weeds from around his tomato plants. "The president wants to give you something." Eunice said, "A medal. A promotion, a house. A bigger one than this, anything you want." Taiho did not stop working. "I have what I want. You could be the most famous human in history. The man who walked into the Volkori throne room and changed the galaxy. I do not want to be famous." He looked up at her. I want humans to be known as the species that reaches out its hand in friendship. Not the species that sent a killer to threaten an emperor. Una was quiet for a moment. She sat down on a stone bench near the garden. Was that what you were, a killer? I was a messenger. Taiho pulled another weed and set it aside. A message that I hope we never have to send again. The Valkyrie understand. Now the other species understand. Humanity is not looking for trouble, but we are not to be pushed around. And if someone does not understand, if another species threatens us. Taiho looked at the mountains. The morning mist was burning away, revealing peaks covered in green forest. Then there are others like me. Not many, but enough. Lean forward. Silent training. That was in your file, but I could not find any information about it. We do not advertise. He stood up, brushing dirt from his knees. We call ourselves the quiet ones. We train not to fight, but to end fights. Not to kill, but to convince. Taiho walked to a small table, where a pot of tea was waiting. He poured 2 cups and offered one to Una. The most powerful weapon in the universe is not a bomb or a warship. It is the moment when your enemy realizes that you could destroy them, and then you offer peace instead. Una took the tea. It was warm and fragrant. Made from leaves grown in Tao's own garden. That is what you showed them. That you could have killed the emperor, but you chose not to, yes. Fear alone does not create lasting peace. It creates resentment and waiting. But respect, true respect, can build something that lasts forever. They sat in silence for a while, drinking tea and watching the garden. Why did you accept the trial? Una finally asked. The president gave you permission. But he said the choice was yours. You could have refused. You could have let the diplomats handle it. Tao was quiet for a long moment. Because they laughed, the aliens. Yes, they looked at us and saw something small and weak. And unimportant. They saw prey. He set down his cup, and I thought about my grandmother, who survived wars that killed millions. I thought about my grandfather, who rebuilt our country with his bare hands after everything was destroyed. I thought about my parents, who worked every day of their lives so that I could have a future. He looked at Una. Humans have always been underestimated by nature, by circumstances, by our own limits, and we have always risen. Not through cruelty or domination, through hard work, creativity, and an absolute refusal to accept that anything is impossible. So you showed them what we really are. Yes, and what is that? Tio looked up at the sky. Somewhere up there. Beyond the blue were the stars. Countless worlds. Infinite possibilities. A whole galaxy that now saw Earth as an equal. We are humans. We are small. We are weak. We live short lives on a tiny world. At the edge of an ordinary galaxy, he smiled, and there is nothing in this universe. We cannot overcome. Una finished her tea and stood up. She had more work to do. The galaxy was not going to organize itself. But she felt better than she had in months. Maybe in years. Thank you. Sergeant Park Taiho. Just Taiho, she smiled. Thank you, Taiho, for everything. She walked back down the path to her transport. At the gate, she turned back. Taiho had already returned to his garden. He was kneeling in the dirt, tending his plants, just an ordinary man living an ordinary life. But she knew the truth now. She knew what he was capable of, and she knew that somewhere on Earth, there were others like him, quiet ones waiting, hoping they would never be needed, but ready if they were. Above the garden, the morning sun grew brighter. A new day was beginning, and in the vast darkness of space, where thousands of species watched and wondered and worried Humanity had finally taken its place among the stars. Not as conquerors. Not as victims, as partners. And no one would ever laugh at them again.